All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Hazakim Bruchim. We'd like to, first of all, thank our host, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Agelian, Tizkula Mitzvot. Thank you very much for hosting us. As always, so beautiful, beautiful spread. Thank you very much. May Hashem bless you guys and repay you double and triple. May your house always be open for smachot and happy occasions and more mitzvot with Hashem. All right, guys, so we have a lot of work cut out for us tonight. And with Hashem, this week we're going to be reading the Parashat about the spies. Shelach lecha nashim, where we are given the opportunity to send spies into the land of Israel. And we all know what ended up happening. Who gives us the opportunity to send these spies? Even though it was our idea, it says in Sefer Devarim that we wanted to do it. It wasn't from Hashem. It was from us. But Moshe asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem said, yes, it's okay. If they want to do it, Shlach lecha l'da'atcha. If you want to send the spies to spy out the land, you're allowed. You can do that. Okay, fine. Fair enough. So what ends up happening is that the spies come back from the land of Israel with a negative report, as we all know, and they start saying that, even though the land of Israel is very good and it's got great fruit, but it is a land of people that are giants, and people are dying all the time. We saw funeral after funeral over there, and they discouraged the Jewish people from wanting to go into the land of Israel, and people started crying. They started crying. They said, this is terrible. We won't be able to fight. We won't be able to win. We're going to go there and die. What's the point? Let's just U-turn and get out of here.
After 40 years.
No, this was before the 40 years. This was only 2 years. Now, what happened was, since they went and spied for 40 days, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, for each day of the spying, they're going to get 1 year in the desert. So because of that, it ended up being 40 years in the desert as a decree, because of the fact that they came back with a negative report. Now, very interesting to note that the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit, Chavtet Amud Aleph, says the following: Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ota Laila Leil Tisha B'Av Haya. That night, when the Jewish people started crying, and because of the fact that they heard that there's, bad news, to go to Israel is bad news. We're going to have to fight against these giants, and we can't win, and it's a disaster. Because they started crying, so when did this take place? It was the night of Tisha B'Av. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, because you cried, what's called Bechia Shel Chinam, you cried for no reason. Since you cried for no reason, I will establish this night as a Bechia Lidorot, which means that you will cry for all future generations on this date. In other words, you have with your own actions established that this date from now until Mashiach comes, Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, is going to be a day of crying, but real crying for real reasons. And we all know what took place. Welcome. We all know what took place when it came to Tisha B'Av. We had Churban Habayit. We had both temples were destroyed on Tisha B'Av. We had the Spanish Inquisition that was signed on Tisha B'Av. We had the final solution of Yimach Shemo of Hitler that was on Tisha B'Av. So Hashem says you cried on Tisha B'Av for no reason. You cried because you were quote unquote afraid, quote unquote scared of going to fight against whoever is there and conquering the land of Israel. You didn't have that faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He can do it, and He could, just like He took you out of this massive empire, Egypt, He could also get you into the land of Israel. You didn't have that faith, and you started to cry out of fear. But that's called Bechia Shel Chinam. It's a crying for no reason. It's a meaningless crying. You're crying for no reason. There's nothing wrong. Hashem could take you in there and get you into there, no problem. So you cried for no reason. Hashem says for all the rest of time until Mashiach comes, you're going to take this day to Tisha B'Av and cry. But not for no reason, for real reasons. It's a scary thought. It's amazing. Everything is always measure for measure. We have done wonderful things and we were rewarded for it. We've done things that are problematic and we were punished for it. Like for example, when it came to Yom Kippur, for example, just as an aside, why do we have Yom Kippur? Because the Jewish people were so scared they might commit another crime like the golden calf. When Moshe Rabbeinu went up again to get the second set of stone tablets, that the Jewish people on that day cried and fasted and prayed that they should not fail. They should not, God forbid, fall to the Yetzer Hara. And Hashem said, you guys cried and fasted on this day and prayed. I'm going to take this day and make it a day for all future generations, a day of atonement and forgiveness for all time. And that's called Yom Kippur. So we cried in a positive way on Yom Kippur on that day, the 10th day of Tishrei. And Hashem said, because of what you did, I'm going to take this day and make it the holiest day of the year every year from now till the end of time. Amazing. So when you do positive, Hashem says, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it on a pedestal and say, look, guys, from now on, I will always forgive you every year this day. Amazing. But over here was the opposite. We cried for no reason. We cried from a lack of faith. Hashem says, you're crying for no reason? Okay. But unfortunately, for all time until Mashiach comes, that day is going to be a day of crying, but for real reasons. Because we lost the temples and we lost so many millions of people and we all kinds of terrible things on the time. So it's important to be aware of this. Welcome, welcome. Wow, what a zechut to have you. Thank you. Okay. So Rabotai, let's look at this a little bit closer. So Chazal made the statement. When did this happen? This happened on Tisha B'Av. Leon, come. I see right here. Right? So when did this take place? It happened on Tisha B'Av. Now, says the Baal HaTurim and the Rokeach, two of the greatest Rishonim, they both point out something amazing. Let's do the math, okay? So, the Jewish people, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Tet Amud Aleph tells us that the Jewish people got the Torah in the year 2448. Right now we're in 5782. In 2448, the Jewish people got the Torah. That the Gemara tells us in Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Tet. Okay? Now, the Bet HaMikdash was built by King Solomon in the year 2928. So that was exactly 480 years after the Jews left Egypt. It says in the Navi, Shlomo HaMelech, 480 years after the Jews left Egypt, built the temple in Jerusalem. So that gets us up to year 2928. How long did the first temple last? Lasted for 410 years. So 410 years means it was destroyed on Tisha B'Av in 3338. Okay? So that takes us to year 3338. Says the Baal HaTurim. Amazing. What's the Gematria of Shelach? 338. Right? Shelach, which is this week's Parashat, that which means send the spies, is in 338. Nowadays we're in we never count the thousands number. Like we're in 5,782, but Tav Shin Pei Bet means 782. We never do the thousands number. So Shin Lamed Chet means 3,338. Amazing. So in the word Shlach already is embedded the fact that because of what's going to happen in this week's parasha, we're going to lose the Bet HaMikdash in the year that it's going to take place. That's the Baal HaTurim. Is it clear, guys? Yes or no? If not, I'll say again. 100% or no? Yeah? Okay. Okay, good. Fine. So that's an amazing thing. That's why it says in the Pasuk in Yirmiyahu, it says, Shalach me'al panai ve'yetzeu. Yirmiyahu and Hanavi says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to just tell you to send them. Don't pray for them. Don't pray for their protection. Just get rid of them. Get rid of them. Shalach me'al panai ve'yetzeu. Why Shalach? Telling you because that's the year. 3,338. That's the year that they're going to be sent away from the land of Israel. So it's all here, Abutai. It's all here. This is the parasha where, because of what we did with the spies, due to that, we got kicked out of the Beit HaMikdash and of the land of Israel. Welcome, Tzadikim. Welcome. Okay. Now, I want to share with you something while we're on the subject of the destruction of the temple. Quite interesting. Again, the connection between what the spies did and the destruction of the temple. If you look in Megillat Eicha, which is the Yirmiyahu Hanavi's Lamentations, where he's just so sad over what happened with the destruction of the temple, and how so many devastating things took place. He writes those 5 chapters according to the Aleph Bet. Eicha yashva badad, Ha'ir Yam. It's Aleph, right? It just starts off Aleph Bet Gimel Dal. Every pasuk is according to the Aleph Bet. The first chapter is straight Aleph through Taf, Aleph Bet. But the rest of the chapters, those chapters, you see something very interesting. You see that Pei, for some reason, comes before Ayin. We always know Aleph, right? Samech, Nun, right? Nun, Samech, right? Ayin, Pei. Ayin comes before Pei. But in Eicha, the rest of the chapters after the first one, Yirmiyahu, for some reason, puts, instead of it being Ayin and then Pei, he goes Pei and then Ayin. You guys follow what I'm saying or no? Is it clear what I'm saying? Yeah. Clear? What? Why? Exactly, right? So why does he switch around the Ayin and the Pei to put Pei before Ayin? So the answer that the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Kuf Dalet, tells us is because what happened was the Miraglim, the spies in this week's parasha, they put their mouths first before they actually saw things. They started to give a bad report about things they didn't even see. Now I saw someone try to explain, what is this referring to? What did they give a bad report about that they did not see? So the answer that he gave, this is from Midrash Agadah. He says the following. He says, it says in their report, Vegam yelidei ha'anak ra'inu sham. We saw the offspring of the anak, of the giants. Okay. Now, he points out beautifully, where were these giants? We know that when Avraham Avinu buried Sarah Imenu, it says already in Parashat Chayei Sarah that he buried her in Kiryat Arba, Hebron. And Rashi over there asks, what does that mean, Kiryat Arba, the area, the town of the 4? What does that mean? What 4? So Rashi says, one explanation is that there were 4 giants. There was Achai, Sheshai, Talmai, and their father. 4 massive human beings. It's the town of the 4 because it's referring to those 4 huge people. That's what it means, Kiryat Arba. So where were they? They were in Hebron. Now it says that the spies went up through the south, Vayalu Banegev, which means all of them, they all went up to the south. And it says, Vayavo ad Hebron. And he went to Hebron. Who went to Hebron? Why doesn't it say, and they went to Hebron? So the Gemara in Masechet Sotah tells us because it's talking about Kalev. Kalev was one of the 12 spies. Kalev ditched everybody and went to Hebron. Why did he go to Hebron? Because he knew he needed to pray very hard not to fall into the trap of the spies. So he left. Sorry, guys. We good? Okay. So he left the spies in order to go pray by Me'arat HaMachpelah, the grave of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and Adam and Chava. He left all the spies in order to go pray at their grave. But only he did. So who went to Hebron? Caleb went to Hebron. Did the other spies go to Hebron? No. So did the other spies see the offspring of the Anak? No. Who did? Caleb. So their peh, says the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, their mouth, that they got up and said, V'gam yelidei ha'anak ra'inu sham, that they said, we also saw the offspring of the giants. Not true. That's peh before the ayin. That's why it says that Yirmiyahu, when he wrote Echa, he put the peh, the mouth, before the ayin, the eye. Because the letter peh means mouth and ayin means eye. Their mouths were talking before their eyes saw anything. That's what the Gemara says. Now I'll tell you the honest truth. When I read this in this Midrash Haggadah, I was struck by an immediate question. The question is that in the rest of the parasha, it says a very famous pasuk. It says that the spies reported the following: "Vanehi be'enenu kachagavim, v'chen hayinu be'enehem." We were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so too we were in their eyes. The spies said they were so big, they were such giants. We were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so too we were in their eyes. Now, how would they know what these people perceive of them? How would they be aware of how the people around them look at them? So Rashi says, based on the Gemara in Masechet Sotah, that they overheard these giants saying, we see little ants that look like people.
Okay, so they saw the giants.
Very good. That's my question, Dr. Chaimpour. Very good. They saw the giants. They actually heard the giants saying, we see ants that look like people. So they obviously did encounter the giants. So I think Rashi is addressing this question. And Rashi's explaining it's not the giants that they said they saw. You know who they saw? Rashi says over there something interesting. It says, I'll read you the pasuk inside. It says, they were saying this about who? About the Nephilim. Interesting. It says, V'sham ra'inu et ha-Nephilim, b'nei anak min ha-Nephilim. What does it mean, Nephilim? Nephilim means, based on what it says in the end of Parashat Bereshit, there were certain angels that fell from Shamayim. And Rashi says, certain angels that fell from heaven. Why did they fall from heaven? This is an old story in Parashat Bereshit. They saw that people were messing up very heavily. They told Hashem, we told you not to make the world with these people. It's not going to end up good. And Hashem said, oh yeah, you think you can do better? And they said, of course we could do better. So Hashem let them go. It's a whole discussion at the end of Parashat Bereshit. Who were they? So one was named Shamchazai and one was named Azael. Two malachim that fell from Shamayim. Those malachim had descendants. Those were the people that the spies encountered. That's what Rashi said. Rashi says, those are the spies. Those are the ones that said that we see people, that they're ants that look like people. But it wasn't Yelidei Ha'anak. It was not the descendants of Talmai, Sheshai, Achiman, and their father. It's a different group. So it's true in a certain extent that they saw giants, but they doctored it up and they added more, and they said, and we even saw those people. You didn't see those people. You didn't see them. You understand? They did see incredibly large people. It was a different group though. It was the descendants of the Nephilim. It's a nice chidush, I think. Different. What?
Everything gets wiped out. None of them the Nephilim would stay, right?
These guys did. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. They survived. That's why it says Og was one of the people that held on to the Teva. Yeah. Interesting. Those 4 people were after. They came after. They were bigger. Correct. They were bigger. Yes. No, because they saw a different group. They saw the Bnei Nephilim. But they said we saw Yelidei Anak, which means the Kiryat Arba people, different group of people. No, but so the way that the Gemara is saying that their peh came before their ayin, that means that they did it knowing that it's a different group, but they wanted to spice it up. You understand? That's the point. Now, Rabotai, I want to share with you a thought that I had on this. You see, you have to ask yourself one very basic question. Guys, everybody with me so far? Yes. Okay. I want to just ask you one basic question. What on earth does the sin of the spies that they claim that they saw a certain group that they didn't see, they saw a different group, why does that have to make its way into Eicha? Eicha is what we read on Tisha B'Av. That the last 4 chapters, they should all have the letter Pei before the letter Ayin. What is that doing there? What is that? What's the reason for that? So their mouth spoke before their eyes. In other words, they were talking about things they didn't even see. I think the answer is very simple. We have to realize that what it says in Chazal, that whenever you have a generation that the Bet HaMikdash was not rebuilt, ki'ilu hu hechrivo. It's as if he destroyed it. It's as if that generation was the one that had the Bet HaMikdash and caused it to get destroyed. So what that means is that if the spies did it back then, and we still have this problem, so Yirmiyahu Navi is explaining that's what's going on. You want to know why we're losing the temple? Because it's still the same issue. People are yapping away about stuff they have no idea about. They're saying bad things about people, speaking negatively about people, damaging people's reputations. Meanwhile, the guy doesn't have a clue what he's saying. And that is sinat chinam. That is baseless hatred, for which the Bet HaMikdash gets destroyed. You understand about that? That's the message here. Now let's fast forward that to us. If we still till this day don't have Bet HaMikdash, it means we too are guilty of the same thing. And we are willing to go ahead and to speak negatively about somebody, and we haven't seen it with our own eyes. Our peh is before our eye. And that's why we still don't have Bet HaMikdash. It's sinat chinam. It's very bad. It's baseless hatred. Oh, different story. You see, Rabotai, the Chafetz Chaim talks about this at length. And he writes, when you have what to say about a fellow Jew, when you know something about somebody, and you want to discuss it with that person, not because you're trying to gossip, not because you're trying to speak badly and just spread news, but you know that the guy that is about to do a business deal with this person is in for a really big disaster. You got to stop him. So then the Chafetz Chaim says that yes, under certain conditions, you're required to speak. But the first condition is that you have to have first-hand knowledge of the fact that this guy is a crook. Not second-hand knowledge. Not that you heard about him. Not that you need to know yourself personally. You want to open up your mouth about another Jew, you have to know yourself that this guy is like that. Thank you. Not good enough. Not good enough. You can go tell him to tell him, but you can't do it yourself. First-hand knowledge. The mouth cannot come before the eye. It cannot come before the eye. It's a very important thing that we're taking from over here. So the Gemara is connecting the two together. The sin of the spies equals destruction of the temple. Same thing.
What about for like a bond offense? Like someone claims someone else did something bad, so the other person's life is in danger. Are you allowed to call them then?
You need to get that guy to tell him.
Really, even in that case?
It's a very serious thing, but you have to let him know. You have to make sure you know somehow. Okay.
Although he's in danger,
Doesn't the Chafetz Chaim also tell you that you can't say it? This guy's a Rasha, you have to say it in a way
There are lots of criteria.
Yes.
There are lots of different rules, but I'm just trying to point out that one of the most basic rules is you have to have first-hand knowledge yourself. Okay. I mean, and just look at the devastation that came out from this kind of behavior. All of these tragedies. Bet HaMikdash number 1, Bet HaMikdash number 2, Spanish Inquisition, you name it, the final solution. All of this stuff happens because of these types of behaviors, Abutai. So important to us to realize that. Okay, let's continue. I want to share with you a thought from Rav Avraham Pab, Zecher Tzedek Levacha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Midas, where I learned. Rav Pam, in his Sefer, brings down the following very basic question. He says, I see a contradiction. You have questions? Sorry. Yeah, sure.
you know, Rabbi, sometimes your eyes also make a mistake.
Right.
That's also very important. Sometimes you see something and you say, oh, look what is going on.
Right.
But you don't know what it looks like.
That's a good point as well. Sometimes even you see something and it's a mistake. You look at it and you misinterpret it. You're supposed to judge favorably as well. It's a very good point, Dr. Chaim.
If you see someone,
100%.
people go to McDonald's, don't assume he's getting fried.
Correct. You have to judge favorably. Correct.
Something like that can come from mistakes. Has to be something that's
Right.
affected by negative. So
Right.
instead of telling someone something, you can also do other strategies. You can distract them, you can get them out of the situation without telling them.
That's also true. Very good.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's not a very good point. You should always judge favorably anyway. Chazak Baruch. Okay. So Rav Pam asks the very basic question. He says, I don't understand. What was the core problem of what the spies did? If you look in the Pasuk, it says in the Torah, in this week's Parashat, Hashem asks Moshe, Ve'ad ana lo ya'aminu bi. Until when won't they believe in me? Which makes it sound like there was a lack of faith. Meaning, they come back, they say, we saw giants, we saw huge fortified cities, we cannot win. So therefore, they don't believe in Hashem. Another pasuk in Devarim tells us, in this matter of going into Israel, you didn't believe Hashem. You didn't believe He had the power to bring you in. So it stands to reason the problem was a simple lack of faith. Now, if you look in Parashat Pinchas, right after the story of the daughters of Tzlofchad, for whoever remembers, there was a man named Tzlofchad who did not have any sons, and the daughters wanted to secure their inheritance. They wanted to say to Moshe, why should we lose out a part of the land of Israel because our father didn't have sons? It's not fair that we shouldn't get a portion. And Moshe asked Hashem, and Hashem agreed they should get a portion of the land of Israel. Okay. Over there, it goes on to say that at the end of this 40 years of the desert and the decree of everybody, Hashem said at the end, in this week's parasha, whoever was in this generation is not going into the land of Israel. They cried, they're scared, they don't want to go in. They got what they wanted. They're not going in. They're going to stay out of the land of Israel. So the pasuk says, Ube'ele lo haya ish, that there wasn't one man from this generation that ended up going into the land of Israel. But it says there wasn't one man. Rashi over there in Parashat Pinchas points out, but women, plenty. Why? Because the women had nothing to do with the decree of the spies, with the whole thing. They were completely unrelated to the story of the spies. In the same way they were unrelated to the story of the golden calf, They were totally unrelated to the story of the spies, and they all went in. Everything's good. The daughters of Tzluvchad wanted a portion in the land of Israel, and they said, "We want it. It's not okay." So they had a certain love for the land of Israel. Hashem said, "You got it, right? You got it. The ladies got in." Now, what? They were Shevet Menashe. Yes. Welcome. Okay. Now, so Rashi says, "Aval al hanashim lo nigzera gzerat maglim lefi shehayu mechavevot et haaretz," because they loved the land. So over here you see something interesting. Now things take a twist. Now all of a sudden you see that it's not so much a lack of faith, like we said before, quoting the Torah, saying that it's a lack of faith. But all of a sudden, because the daughters of Tzluvchad had a love for the land of Israel, they got a portion in the land of Israel. So it stands to reason that the people who did not have a love for the land of Israel. And let's take it a step further. It says in Tehillim, "Vayim'asu be'eretz chemda," they rejected, they were disgusted by the desired land. Lo ha'eminu lidvaro, they didn't believe his word. This pasuk sounds like a self-contradiction. It says they rejected, they were disgusted by the land of the desired land. They didn't believe in his word. This is a pasuk in Tehillim, Perek Kuf Vav. What is it? What was the problem? What was the core issue? Was the core issue that they were disgusted by the land of Israel? Or was the core issue that they didn't believe in what Hashem had to say? That he was going to take them into the land of Israel. Another point which brings out the same idea. Hashem tells Moshe, tell the Jews, V'tapchem, you were worried about your children. They said about their children, our children are going to be taken as slaves. So Hashem says, tell them, your children, asher amartem labaziyeh, that they're going to be taken as captives. Ve'eveti otam, I'm going to bring them into the land. Ve'yadu et haaretz, and they will get to know the land, asher me'astem ba, that you were disgusted by, that you despised. So we see again and again the concept that there was an issue of being disgusted by the land of Israel. So what was it? Were they disgusted by the land of Israel, or did they simply not have faith? We see two issues going back and forth. Is the question clear 100%, yes or no?
Yes.
I won't accept anything less than 100%. Yeah? We're good? 100%? Okay, good. And we'll end off with one more question in this subject. Kalev and Yehoshua go ahead and they try to calm things down. The 10 spies say their report, and now they come and they say the following. Haaretz asher avarnu latur ota tova, haaretz me'od me'od. The land that we went and we spied through it, that land is very, very good. Okay, that's what they say. Question. Why on earth would that be a winning argument? What does that have to do with anything? They're coming and they're telling you, gentlemen, there are giants there. Are you going to fight a giant? How are you going to fight these people? They've got fortified cities. They've got massive structures. You can't win them. What's my counter argument? The land is really, really good. What does that have to do with anything? They say that there's money there. I think you're onto something. But you understand the problem. What is that? Why is that an answer? They're telling you you're gonna die. You don't have a minute to see, they're gonna kill you. Why is this an answer to anything? These are all the questions laid out by Rav Avraham Pam, Zecher Tzedek Livracha. And he says a beautiful answer. He answers only like the way only he could do, with a beautiful Mishnah. Okay? We actually learned this Mishnah at the end of Masechet Bava Batra. The Mishnah talks about the following case. Okay? Very interesting discussion. It seems totally unrelated, but you'll be surprised how it works out. It says like this. What happens if a guy says the following. He has a pregnant wife. And he says, Im teled ishti zachar, yitol maneh. If my wife gives birth to a boy, then I'm putting 100 zuz in his bank account. Okay? 100 zuz means, let's say, $30,000. Okay? I am gifting him, more correctly, better way of saying it. I am gifting there's a baby inside of my wife right now. Okay? If my wife gives birth to a boy, then right now, at this very moment, I'm gifting that fetus $30,000. Okay? That's what I want to do. Okay? Now, if the baby boy is born, the baby gets $30,000. It belongs to him. Somebody steals it, he steals it from him. It's gifted to that baby. So I have the ability to gift that baby, even though it's not even born yet, $30,000. Okay, fine. Now, look at this interesting thing. Same story, but it's my friend's baby or my brother's baby. Okay? And I say, if your wife is going to give birth to a boy, $30,000 to that fetus right now will belong to him. Says the Gemara, the first one, when it's his own fetus, works. Second one, when it's his brothers or his friends, doesn't work. Doesn't work. What's the difference?
How about the question of neder?
What?
How about the question of neder?
It's not it's a question of gift. Does the gift take effect or not?
Why not?
Okay.
Depends on the father.
In a sense, you have a point. So I'll read to you what the Rashbam says. The Rashbam on this Gemara says the following. He says, the answer is like this. Ho'il v'da'ato shel adam krova etzel beno. Meaning, by his own son, he's very close to his own fetus. The child that he's about to have comes from himself. It's very close. So says the Rashbam, the grandson of Rashi, Laubar shelo, to his own fetus, gomeru makne b'chol libo. He's wholeheartedly giving over that gift right now, no questions asked. He's wholeheartedly giving that gift. Aval leubar acher, but to a different fetus, lo kana. Doesn't work. You know why? Explains Rav Pam beautifully. God forbid, when a fetus is not yet born, so there are questions. Maybe, God forbid, chas v'chalila shalom, there's a miscarriage. Maybe there will be a miscarriage. Maybe, God forbid, there will be issues or complications with the delivery, God forbid. Maybe even if you will be a good delivery, maybe the baby won't be a normal human being. All kinds of diseases, God forbid. Oh, right? So when it, listen. That's a good point. So he says, listen, when it comes to a regular situation, the dad says, there's all kinds of variables, all kinds of question marks. So for that reason, even if he says that he's going to give it as a gift, he doesn't really give it as a gift. He's not really giving it as a gift. Meaning that because of all the question marks involved with this fetus, maybe it's going to be, God forbid, miscarried. Maybe it's going to have complications at birth. Maybe it's going to be sick, God forbid. So says the Rashbam, because of that, he doesn't really give that gift wholeheartedly. Yani, there's no gift. Okay? Now, what about his own fetus, his own wife who has a fetus inside right now? Why does it work there? So the Gemara's answer is that ho'il v'da'ato shel adam krova etzel beno, which means the following. He's, for his own baby, he's got so much love for this baby. He's so sure that everything will be good. He's so positive about it. He's got no questions. Everything is going to be great. Of course I'm having the baby. Of course the baby's going to be healthy. Of course everything's going to be fine at the delivery. Of course there won't be any miscarriage. Everything's going to be perfect. He has no doubts. Buddy, it's the same risk. It's the same exact issue. What do you think your wife is different than her wife? Right? The answer is no. Of course it's different. Everything's going to be fine by my wife. Understand the point of Utai? When you desire something, when you love something, when you want something, then all the risks, they all go bye-bye. They all fall off. You don't care about the risks anymore. Doesn't make a difference to you. Everything's going to be good. Exactly. Like Abu Tay said, להבדיל אלף אלפי הבדלות. להבדיל אלף אלפי הבדלות. There was a certain actor that was known for some crazy stunts that he did in movies. Crazy stunts. And he wouldn't have a safety guy do it. He would do it himself. And they asked him, like, how do you go about that? So he said, I was thinking about this shot for 20 years. And I was thinking about how I'm going to fall off the building and how I'm going to fly through the window. And then he says, and the people told him that you're risking your life. And he said, what? He's doing it. And he did it. No issues, no problems. Because if you want it that bad, you love it so much, then all the issues, they fall away. Says Rav Pam beautifully. We were wondering before the question, what was the core problem? Was it a lack of faith, or was it a problem that they rejected the land of Israel? They were disgusted by the land of Israel. Says Rav Pam, the answer is, they didn't love the land of Israel. They rejected it. They despised it. And because of that, since they didn't have the love for the land of Israel, that caused the lack of faith. Now all of a sudden there's risks, there's issues, there are problems, there's this, there's that. Why? Because you don't have the passion. You don't have the love. You don't have the desire. For the daughters of Tzlofchad that love the land of Israel, they're saying, well, we're not going to have a portion of the land. We love it. We want it. That's not fair. Let us go in. But for the spies, they didn't have, they rejected the desired land. So now all of a sudden there's issues. There are giants. It's a land that I saw lots of funerals there and big fortified cities. All of a sudden, everything becomes a problem. Why? Because you're not desiring it, because you don't love it, because you're not running after it. The minute that you have the passion, that you love it, that you're desiring it, all other issues would have fallen off. You understand the point of that? It's a very important point that Rav Pam is making.
What other alternative?
And that's why they're telling the people. That's the answer to the question that we asked before. The Kalev and Yoshua get up and they say, Tovah haaretz meod meod. The land is very, very good. What kind of answer is that? They're saying we're going to get killed. What are you answering? The answer is no. The only reason you're saying that you're scared of dying is because you don't understand just how good the land of Israel is. If you would really understand how good it is, and you would develop that desire in your heart for the land of Israel, you would never be worried about the giants and about the this and that. Nothing would matter to you. You'd run after it. You'd do anything for it. Like the daughters of Tzlofchad. You'd be like the guy Leavdil that wants to make that stunt on his movie. Leavdil. It doesn't make a difference what risks are involved. He wants it. You understand? That's what he's looking for. It's extremely important to understand. Many times, a person, God forbid, could feel like, how could I accomplish in Torah? How could I achieve? How can I grow? It's too hard for me. I have to work. I have to this, after that. And there's all kinds of, issues that pop up. You should know, says Rav Pam, if you really, really love the Torah Kedosha, nothing will stand in your way. You can learn and you can set aside time, and there will be time for you, and you will grow, and then all the excuses fall off. You just have to want it. Just have to love it. That's the key. So because because they rejected it, that's why that's why they didn't believe. Because the issue was that they weren't interested to begin with. That was the problem. Okay? Important to understand. We have a question over there?
No. So Rabbi, this is
Okay,
spies.
yeah.
Why they didn't have people, right?
That's a good question.
They were
What?
Nessim.
What?
They're spies. They were not Nessim.
Yes, they were the
So they weren't stupid people.
No.
Absolutely right. So what was the alternative? Okay, we don't like Islam. What are we gonna do? We're gonna hang around in the desert for the rest of our lives. We're gonna go back.
So that's a great question along the lines of what Mr. Ibrahim is asking. The big question obviously now leads us to, well, why did they reject the land of Israel? What was the problem? So the answer that many give is that being that they were in the desert, surrounded by Ananei Kavod, getting the man every day from Shammai, getting the water from the Be'er Miriam, and they were just on the highest spiritual level, which it doesn't get any better than that. So they have to go now into Israel to become farmers and to start to deal with tomatoes and cucumbers and dealing with cows and cleaning up after the cows. They said, forget it. Who needs it?
Basically lazy.
In a sense, but more interested in high spiritual level. High spiritual level, being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
On a spiritual level, if God tells you go, say yes.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it should have been.
So
You're right. That's a good point. It's a good point. But it's important to understand the concept that when you have that desire for something, you want something, nothing will stand in your way. All the real obstacles that are real. No one said they're not real. But those things will fall off. If you have that desire, then your emunah will carry you through, no problem. Okay. Very important point from Avpam. I want to share with you one more point, Rabotai. I think it's important to talk about. We all know that whenever you want to do something that requires, let's say, it's called what we call davar shebikdusha. Let's talk about different things which are very holy things. For example, kaddish, baruch hu, kedusha, beautiful. We all know that these things require a minyan, require a quorum of 10 men. Okay. It says in the pasuk in the Torah that v'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. Okay. Hashem says, I will be sanctified amongst the Jewish people. Okay. That is the mitzvah of kedusha. When we get together and we say kadosh, 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 baruch hu Hashem v'chomo, that's kedusha. It says it has to be betoch b'nei Yisrael, amongst the Jewish people. How do you know that it needs to be a minyan? What is the source that it needs to be 10 people? Why can't it be 5 people, 6 people, 8 people? What's 10? So it's a very interesting drasha the Gemara says in Masechet Megillah, and it tells us when Korach, which is going to be in, we're going to read it very shortly, when Korach came to rebel against Moshe, so it says the following: Hibadelu mitoch ha'eda. Stay away from get yourselves out of the midst of this rebellion. Remove yourselves, Hashem said. 2 words over here: toch and eda. Hibadelu mitoch, from the midst of ha'eda, this group. Okay. What word did we say applies to the kedusha that we say kadosh kadosh kadosh? V'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. Toch. So it says by Korach toch, and it says over there toch. Now by Korach, what else did it say? Eda. Eda means this group. What does it say in this week's parasha about the spies? What does it say over there? Ad matai la'eda hara'a hazot. Until when? For this bad, wicked Eda, group of people. How many wicked people were there? 10, because there were 12 spies, minus Kalev and Yehoshua. That leaves you with 10. So we see that in Eda, a group, a quorum, is 10 people from the spies. Now, Korach, it said Toch Eda, amongst this Eda, which is a group. And by Kedusha, Kadosh, 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 V'nikdashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. It says b'toch b'nei Yisrael, which is the same word it says by Korach. So if over there was 10, here's 10 too. Now this is a very interesting thing, Abutai, because what you'll notice is b'toch b'nei Yisrael means, based on what we're learning now, for any davar shebi kedusha, for anything that is a holy matter, it needs to have 10 men. Okay? Now, let's analyze this. Let's ask ourselves one question. Look at this interesting thing. What is the source for minyan in the Torah? Who's the minyan? The spies. The wicked spies. They're Reshaim. And we learn minyan from them. Interesting thing. They're called Edah. This reminds me of a teaching. Welcome, wow. This reminds me of a teaching that Chazal teach us Masechet Kritut. And it says the following. Kol ta'anit she'en ba miposhei Yisrael ena ta'anit. Any fast where you don't have some of the wicked people of Klal Yisrael, Posh'im. Posh'im means people, they know they're doing things that are wrong, they do it anyway. Right? They're not making mistakes. They know you're not allowed to eat pork, the guy eats pork. He knows. If he's not a part of the Ta'anit, if you don't have some of those guys showing up to shul for the Ta'anit, it's not a Ta'anit, says the Gemara. It's not, it doesn't count. You need not only the tzaddikim, not only the guys that are the best of the best. You need the posheim. You need the people that are criminals. According to halacha, this guy's a criminal. Why? He's eating treif, and he knows it. Says the Gemara, if the Ta'anit doesn't have him there, it's not a Ta'anit. What bracha? That's a different question. It's a question of that depends on what exactly they did bad. If he just ate pork, it's still make a bracha. It's what? Very small. But wait, no. So one second. So again, it says if the Poshei Yisrael are not there, it's not a Ta'anit, and that's why. And says the Gemara, why? Why is that the case? Because let's go through the Samamanei Ketoret. In the Ketoret, it says right. ו11 סמנים היו בה ואלו הן הצורי והציפורן והחלבנה. Says the Gemara, חלבנה ריחה רע. חלבנה had a terrible smell. It was one of the 11 spices though. And the Ketoret, it said the smell was so powerful from the Ketoret that you could smell the Ketoret all the way in Yericho and Jericho. That's like by Dead Sea area. So they're making the Ketoret in Yerushalayim. You smell it all the way over there, and it was such a beautiful smell. So over here, says the Gemara, why do we say that the Posh'im have to be there, that those criminals have to be at the Ta'anit as well? Why? Because if the Chelbena was a part of the 11 spices of the Ketoret, and the Chelbena smelled terrible, it was an awful smell, but part of the bigger picture is a very big fragrance, an aroma, a pleasing aroma to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the word in Hebrew for community, tzibur, is tzadi. The main word letters are tzadi, bet, and resh. Tzadi stands for tzadikim, bet stands for benonim, and resh stands for reshaim. Tzadikim are righteous, benonim are in the middle, and reshaim are wicked. But that's what makes up a tzibur, connected with Yud and Vav, which are the letters of Hashem's name.
Even bad smell.
What? Even the bad smell. When he's together with everybody, it's a good smell for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you see over here a very important lesson, Abutai. We learn over here. Look, this is the source for minyan in the Torah. The 10 wicked spies. That's how you know it has to be 10. So we see over here, Abutai, very important that every Jew counts. Even somebody that is far, he's what we would call a poshea. Still, in the eyes of Hashem, when he comes to be a part of the tzibur, it's a very important thing to include him. That's why it's amazing. We always see a Yom Kippur at the end by Ne'ilah, all of a sudden the whole world shows up. Amazing thing, right? You see it, right? But you should know, because of them, our Yom Kippur is a valid Yom Kippur. It's an amazing thing. Because of those guys that they didn't show up the whole day, but they showed up just now. Now, Poshei said, it's a real ta'anit now. That's what it says. I'll read to you again. Kol ta'anit she'en ba mi poshei Yisrael ena ta'anit. It's not a valid fast. Amazing thing. We think here we are the whole day, we're doing everything. Buddy, your whole ta'anit is because that guy showed up at the end of the day. It's an amazing thing. So you don't think of it like that.
They don't come to shoot, that means they are not Tani?
What? No, they are ta'anit, but the point is that we need everybody to be involved, even the Poshei Yisrael. Exactly, of course, because they're like the Chelbena. They're like the Chelbena. They're like that part of this ketoret that doesn't have a good smell, but together with everybody, it makes it a very good smell. Gentlemen, chazakim bruchim, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. You said the same thing last time you were here. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us on Zoom. Thank you to our host, Mr. and Mrs. Agelian, School of Mitzvot.